Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. When I take a critical look at Les Moonves, the CEO of CBS, I see a man who's being railroaded by the system of gynocentric Jim Crow. Now, many of these white racists and white supremacists here in America, they had a chuckle when Bill Cosby was convicted wrongly on false sexual assault charges 2 or 3 months ago. However, now many of those white men are starting to realize the legal precedent that was established and how damaging that legal precedent is to their rights, because now men have no rights that women need to regard anymore, thanks to the precedent established by the Bill Cosby sexual assault trial. And with the precedent established by the Bill Cosby sexual assault trial, women now know that they no longer have to bring facts in or to make their claims regarding sexual harassment and sexual assault against any man, regardless of race. And because they don't have to bring in any sort of facts as related to the objective terms of the law, based on facts, logic, and reason, they can have a man terminated from his job or even arrested and charged with a crime based on their subjective opinions regarding events. And your Les Moonves is learning this the hard way, as Sherry Redstone, the daughter of Sumner Redstone, is using this legal precedent established by the Me Too movement and feminists to try to get your Les Moonves terminated from his job. Now, when it comes down to your Les Moonves, the reason why he is being targeted by the Me Too movement with these claims of sexual harassment and sexual assault is not because there was some sort of campaign to stop sexual harassment and sexual assault. No, the Me Too movement is being used as a pawn by your Sherry Redstone in an attempt to try to oust your Les Moonves from his position as CEO of CBS. And because she wants to merge CBS with Viacom again, she wants to use old sexual harassment and sexual assault claims from 20 years ago as the reason to get your Les Moonves terminated from his job. And this is something I talked about in numerous videos, and I said that when they created that legal precedent where they got Bill Cosby convicted, this would be one of the things that would happen. Because again, this whole thing for the feminists as related to the Me Too movement was about these feminists getting economic and political power and using the position of the victim as a way to gain economic and political power, because they want to try men in the court of public opinion, shame them, and then use that shame as a way to get these men to either resign from their positions or have them terminated by the board of directors and then install their own puppets. And we saw an example of that happen with Senator Al Franken about a year or two ago, where there was all this mounting pressure over a 10-year-old picture of Al Franken grabbing on a female, and these feminists used that as a way to get Al Franken to step down from his position as senator, I believe, in Minnesota. And this was also done to the Attorney General here in New York, where there were revelations that he was participating in sexually deviant behavior by women, and they used that to oust Eric Schneiderman out of his position as Attorney General here in New York. Now, many of those women knew that these men participated in sexual behavior behind the scenes. However, what these females did was, because they wanted to get power under the system of gynocentric Jim Crow, they then used those past incidents as leverage, as a way to get those men to step down from their positions. And what's happening to your Les Moonves right now is that these women are taking these 20-year-old allegations of sexual harassment and sexual assault and trying to use them as leverage in the hopes of getting your Les Moonves to leave his position as CEO, a position as CEO he had for over 20 years, a position most people want him in because he made CBS the #1 television network for over, I think, 5 to 10 years now, and he's made CBS extremely competitive. But because your Sherry Redstone wants to get complete power and control over all of CBS's holdings, what she's doing is using the Me Too movement and the victim narrative as a way to oust your Les Moonves out of his position as CEO and install whoever she wants to be the CEO, and then she'll take complete control over the company. And this is how the whole campaign to get Bill Cosby has completely backfired on these racist and white supremacists. Because when these racist and white supremacists were in their feelings about Bill Cosby, they thought they would destroy his legacy. However, karma has come back on many of these racist and white supremacists, and now they have to deal with these women and the looming threat of gynocentric Jim Crow. Because, again, with the legal precedent established by the Bill Cosby sexual assault trial and the conviction against Bill Cosby, it had an impact on men the same way that your Dred Scott case had an impact on black men and black women, and the Plessy versus Ferguson case had an impact on black men and black women. And that impact is this: because under the new standard of the law, we no longer have due process under the law as related to the Sixth Amendment. And under this whole new precedent, what we have now under this gynocentric Jim Crow is that women no longer have to regard the rights of men, because under the new precedent we have the subjective opinions based on emotion as the legal standard, and all a woman now has to do is make a claim that a man did something to them, and that man's whole life can now be put at risk. And that's what the racists have done, and that's how it's completely backfired, because in their attempts to get revenge against Bill Cosby and destroy his legacy, white men are now suffering the threat of losing their own legacies under this new legal precedent. Because with this new legal precedent, what is happening now is we're having these feminists and women like Sherry Redstone now looking to gain more economic and political power at the expense of gullible men, and trying to use the Me Too movement as a way to gain more economic and political power. Because that's what this whole case with your Les Moonves is all about. It's all about your Sherry Redstone using the system of gynocentric Jim Crow to take away your Les Moonves' job and restrict his rights to work in corporate America. And this is a consequence that many of these racists weren't thinking about, because when it comes down to the racists, all they were thinking about was destroying Bill Cosby's legacy, but they weren't thinking about the long-term legal consequences of this verdict on all men. And when you take a critical look at the long-term consequences of the Bill Cosby verdict on all men, it again puts all men's rights at risk, because now no man has any rights a woman needs to regard, and any man, including your son, could be have their lives threatened based on some allegations made by a female. And these allegations do not have to be substantiated with evidence like a police report or DNA. all it takes is just this woman saying something, and a man's whole life could be upended just based on this woman and some allegations she could make from 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. And these claims can lead to a man losing his job, losing his freedom, and even possibly losing his life. And this is what black people had to deal with back from the era of the late 1880s all the way up until the 1970s under the system of Jim Crow. And unless men start to take a red pill and wake up, they're not going and start fighting back against the system of gynocentric Jim Crow, things are going to get worse instead of better, because when it comes down to this system of gynocentric Jim Crow, it puts the entire country at risk, because in order for the country to function, we need men working in America. And men cannot work in America effectively if they have to worry about some female making some sort of unsubstantiated claim, and this claim being made to get a man fired from his job, or possibly even arrested just based on her word alone. You cannot run a country with this legal precedent in place, because when it comes down to these women who are a part of the Me Too movement, it's all about them getting money at the expense of men. And if America's economy runs on women getting their needs met by men, and you keep making unsubstantiated claims against men you disagree with or don't like, then you're not going to have an economy that functions well, and may wind up collapsing because females wind up getting all the male laborers fired, and these companies won't be able to run effectively. This is why I propose that President Donald Trump pardon Bill Cosby, because that pardon, what it would do is it would restore the Sixth Amendment and due process under the law, and it would put an end to this Me Too movement and establish a hard boundary regarding this Me Too movement and its allegations of sexual harassment and sexual assault, because the standard for these allegations really needs to be dealt with in a court of law under the objective standard of fact, logic, and reason, not the subjective opinions based on emotion. We should not have a court system based on subjective emotion, and allegations should not be tried in the court of public opinion, because under the standard of the law, these claims against Bill Cosby, Les Moonves, and many other men, the whole standard should be the statute of limitations, because if these women had to deal with these allegations and wanted to take action against them, these women could easily have gone to the police, or they could have gone to the courts to get things taken care of. However, when these women do not go out here to the courts and the legal system, what happens is we get what we have right now: people trying cases in the court of public opinion. And when you try people in the court of public opinion, you get lynchings like what we saw with Bill Cosby, where he was railroaded through the court system. And you get what we're getting right now when I'm seeing Les Moonves being lynched. And this is something white racists did not expect to come out of that Bill Cosby verdict. They thought they were going to get this black man and destroy his legacy. However, these white women in their hypergamy are now looking to string up white men in the hopes of getting a payday and political control and control over the media, because that's what your Sherry Redstone really wants. She wants to use the Me Too movement and these allegations of sexual harassment and sexual assault to take control of the CBS Corporation and its media holdings, and control the narrative of CBS's media holdings, and have them controlled by a gynocentric leader and again, a gynocentric institution. And that's again very dangerous because it shows us how much rights men gave up with that Bill Cosby sexual assault verdict, and what many of these racists didn't understand they were giving up in the process. Because what we have right now is a power move by a white woman to further impose gynocentric Jim Crow, because if your Sherry Redstone gets control over CBS, what's going to happen is she's going to take this network and use it as a platform to further push gynocentrism and feminism as the narrative, and promote slanted pieces of media against men. So I see the bigger picture as related to what your Sherry Redstone is trying to do, and what she wants to do, again, is use this Me Too movement and allegations against your Les Moonves to get him ousted from his position as CEO of CBS. And then she wants to put whatever puppet she wants in that position as she merges Viacom and CBS back together, and then use that as a platform to promote gynocentric propaganda against men, and then continue further promoting the agenda of gynocentric Jim Crow. This is something men in America really need to take a critical look at, and this is something men need to really understand what's going on about. Because if the system of gynocentric Jim Crow continues to gain more and more power here in America, America will be put at the brink of collapse. Because again, women get their resources from men, and women get their labor primarily from men. And if men do not feel safe about going out, they have no incentive to continue contributing to the United States economy. Because why should a man go out here and go out here to work if he has to fear he would lose his job and his freedom, all based on the allegations of a woman? When I take a critical look at this Me Too movement, it has clearly gotten out of control, and it's clearly gotten out of the control of the white supremacists who orchestrated this movement to destroy Bill Cosby. And now it's looking like they're getting ready to try to use this Me Too movement to make further gains towards gynocentric Jim Crow and imposing gynocentric Jim Crow. And as I see it at this point right now, the only thing that would stop this Me Too movement and this system of gynocentric Jim Crow is your President Donald Trump pardoning Bill Cosby, because that's the only thing that's going to establish the legal precedent that brings us from this subjective standard of law based on public opinion and emotional accusations of women back to the objective standard of law based on facts, logic, and reason. It's more than race as it relates to this Me Too movement. And again, in order to end this Me Too movement, we really need your Donald Trump to pardon Bill Cosby, to reestablish our Sixth Amendment with due process under the law, and the objective standard of law where these claims can be dealt with in a court of law and not the court of public opinion. Because if we do not make efforts to try to deal with these allegations in a court of law, we're not going to have an economy here in America. Because with gynocentric Jim Crow, no man has an incentive to go out and work if his freedom is put in jeopardy. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct books, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, The Temptation of John Haynes, the Spinsterella trilogy, and my men's issues books like the Simp series, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.